Lean on us.
We are here for you.
You matter.
You are not alone.
Are you feeling overwhelmed? Not sure where to turn? The National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is there for you 24/7. Call or text 988 or chat at 988sc.org. Whether you're having an emergency or you know someone who needs support now, they can help you take the next step towards finding hope and healing.
There is hope. 988sc.org.
Let's face it, most people aren't making massive turkey feasts on the regular, and after 364 days of not thinking about it, it can be hard to get that bird just right. That's where Instacart, the holiday rescue app, comes in. From getting all the ingredients to prep a full seasonal spread to getting last-minute swaps in a turkey emergency, Instacart has everything a holiday host needs to save face and save dinner. And right now, if you download Instacart, you get free delivery on your first 3 orders and delivery in as fast as 1 hour. Offer valid for a limited time. $10 minimum per order. Additional terms apply.
Hmm?
Who are you calling?
Cecile. What are you doing?
Before we go through with this, I just want to make you aware of the damage we're about to cause.
I'm aware.
Are you really? I mean, we've done some pretty fucked up shit in our time, but this is... We're destroying an innocent girl. You do realize that.
Court Reynolds is going down, and if you won't help me, somebody else will.
You amaze me.
Eat me, Sebastian. It's all right for guys like you in court to fuck everyone, but when I do it, I get dumped for innocent little twits like Cecile. God forbid I exude confidence and enjoy sex. Do you think I relish the fact that I have to act like Mary Sunshine 24/7 so I can be considered a lady? I'm the Marcia fucking Brady of the Upper East Side, and sometimes I want to kill myself. So there's your psychoanalysis, Dr. Freud. Now tell me, are you in or are you out?
Caller.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast. I'm Penny.
And I'm Kara.
And I'm Jim.
This episode, we'll be talking about the 1999 film Cruel Intentions, adapted from, I apologize to French speakers, Liaison Dangereuse, a 1782 French novel written by Pierre Choderlos de Laclos.
The film was written and directed by Roger Kumble. This was his first time directing. This cult classic stars Buffy herself, Sarah Michelle Gellar, along with Ryan Phillippe, Reese Witherspoon, Selma Blair, Sean Patrick Thomas, Joshua Jackson, one of my personal favorites, and Christine Baranski and Louise Fletcher.
So Jim, welcome back to Still Slaying. Listeners, you probably remember Jim very enthusiastically participating in our episode 7, which was about phases. The Oz comes out as a werewolf episode. And
Is this am I the first two-timer?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I get this makes me a permanent co-host then, right?
Just
like I'm joking. I'm kidding.
Recurring guest star? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Jim, what were you up to in the spring of 99?
The spring of 99. So the spring of 99 is when I got engaged to my wife. So
congratulations.
This was the tail end of the post glow and the initial oh my gosh, every like female in my life is now taking over every part of my life.
Oh.
So that's where I was. So this movie was maybe, my wife and I, my fiance at the time, actually went and saw this at the theater. I remember going and seeing it. So I guess it kind of fits in the motif quite well.
That's fantastic. I also saw it in the theater. 1999 was one of the best years of my life. I was in law school in New York City, single, having a good time with being an unattached, unemployed person in New York City. Like, being a grad student you have such flexible time that you can take advantage of a lot of what New York City has to offer. And because I took out just gobs and gobs of loans, I didn't have a very strenuous job on the side of law school. I had really part-time jobs. I was having a good time in life. I had figured out how to go to law school. First semester was miserable, but by second semester I was like, oh, I kind of understand what's important and what's not. Because I was a film major as an undergrad. I didn't know how to read cases. And the world felt really hopeful to me back then. Like, we all thought Gore was going to be the next president, and that like we were finally going to start doing something about climate change. There were all these, powerful women in media that were starting to happen, and like representation was like starting to happen. And I thought that like we were on the verge of like this miraculous new millennium. So it was, it was a wonderful time in my life.
Like, millennials have all sorts of issues, because I was in 5th grade in 1999. It was the second half of 5th grade. It was fantastic. Like, I feel like 1999 was just like peak childhood for me. It was pre-2000 election, pre-9/11. Like, it was a good time. And this was another one of those movies that I had no business watching when I did, because I did not see it in theaters like either of you, but I did sneak and watch it as soon as it started airing on cable, as soon as I could.
Yeah, of course you did.
A pretty crazy cable run. And I was obsessed. Like, that same year, 1999, She's All That had come out. And that was another like peak teen movie centered around, a bet. 10 Things I Hate About You is another similar one. So I had to see this movie. And as I watched it this past week, I realized how many things went over my head when I was watching it as, an 11-year-old. And I'm glad they went over my head. But the realizations that I had, I was like, oh, that's what that meant. So that'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah, it's very different to see it as a middle-aged woman than it was when I was in my 20s and I was a freewheeling single person in New York City, right? Like,
yeah,
I didn't hang with the ultra wealthy prep school crowd, but I certainly like saw them. So the movie seemed, sort of not that outrageous to me, which is really funny now, because it's meant to be outrageous. It's like intentionally outrageous.
I think the difference in perspective, having I don't think I've seen it at all since I saw it that first time. And I definitely went in with a different perspective this time. I think we'll eventually have did it age well conversation.
Yeah.
It looking at it now, having kind of a few different types of awakenings, I think, in our culture some of us, a few different types of awakenings over the past like 25 years. It's just interesting how different I looked at this movie than I did in 99 as a 28-year-old versus a 52-year-old. I think my jaw was, it wasn't a shocking movie, but I just trying to put it all into perspective, kind of watching these parallel people kind of going toe to toe in this movie was just so interesting.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus. Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Well, let's go back to 1999 a little bit.
Are we going to start singing Prince now?
Oh, that'd be fun. The film was released on March 5th of 1999. And Jim, want to start us off with what was going on around the country at the time?
All right. So the number one song in the United States was Angel of Mine from Monica, which I don't remember.
I remember that one.
I meant to listen to it beforehand, but I didn't. But the number one song in the UK was Baby One More Time by Britney Spears, and I do remember that one. At the box office, the number one movie was not Cruel Intentions. It was Analyze This, which was that Billy Crystal?
Yeah, and Robert De Niro.
And Robert De Niro. De Niro had anger problems, I think.
He's a mobster who goes to a shrink.
Yeah, and they
funny.
become friends.
What an original concept.
Cruel Intentions was number 2, though, so we're going to talk about it being a cult classic, but I do think that it actually was a pretty decent size box office hit.
Yeah.
Back in the day. And then you in our notes, you had a very interesting life cover, and I do actually remember that. I actually think I have this somewhere. On the cover was The Secret Lives of Teens, where they talk to real teenagers about all of their personal thoughts on all the things that were going on way back in the day. And then, of course, which is, I guess, highly appropriate for this conversation, Clinton is still in office, and the country is still kind of rolling through the Monica Lewinsky stuff, which, again, prospectively looking back, is very interesting. I was watching a couple of timelines on during this time period, and the Leno just went full on into this and just it was the nightly like Lewinsky like slams kind of throughout this. So that was very interesting. But you did post an interesting article. I'll read it real quick. If Monica Lewinsky was hoping to begin to rebuild her image with this week's 2-hour TV interview, she still has a long ways to go, judging from the results of a new CNN USA Today Gallup poll. Most Americans continue to have a jaded view of President Bill Clinton's ex-lover, consider her immature and shameless, and think she would have another affair with a married man if she thought she could get away with it. It's interesting because it took 20 years for her to do an interview that people accepted. It's such a strange 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, and I love how the emphasis is on, the 20-something intern in the White House and not the actual president of the United States, who's the adult and authority figure and married man. But,
Yeah, it's her. I mean, she is just, the worst. She's brought shame on our country. I mean, people were so mean to her. And I mean, they made fun of her weight. They made fun of her looks. They made fun of her being too rich. They made fun of her being a poser. I mean, it was
Jay Leno is the one that stands out.
Yeah, he was really, really mean. And I stopped watching. I never watched Jay Leno after that because I was like, he's really a jerk, and I don't want anything to do with him.
That was my main exposure to it, was my parents watching the news or watching Leno. And even as a kid, I remember being like, why are we only talking about her? This doesn't seem to make a ton of sense. But I also did want to note your, I'm not sure if this is elsewhere in the podcast, but the Life magazine cover happens to have Katie Holmes on the cover of it.
Yeah.
Who looks like a child in this picture
Yeah.
too.
This is
like,
the sweetest,
so
innocentest
striking
picture of her.
It's appropriate too for this one because I'm sure inevitably it would come out on the podcast that she was the first person considered for the role of Annette.
Yeah, she was really
Cruel
hot at the time.
Intentions.
Yeah.
And
people forget how like she was. I mean, there was like a 3 or 4 year stretch there at the tail end of Dawson's Creek or during Dawson's Creek where she was like right in with that whole crew from Cruel Intentions and all the movies that they were connected to.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that they did not go with her for the role of Annette, though. I have to say, I think that would have been the wrong choice.
Oh, yeah.
But
and Reese Witherspoon apparently turned down the role repeatedly until they rewrote it enough that Annette had some kind of a backbone and some
substance.
agency. And I'm so glad she did, because if that had been a doormat role, the whole film would have fallen apart. It just wouldn't have been as interesting. Like, the fact that she is like a worthy opponent for Sebastian is so important to the triangle and the chemistry. Jim alluded to this, the production information. Cruel Intentions was a moderate commercial success. It grossed $13 million in its opening weekend, number 2 behind Analyze This. It was originally released in 2,312 theaters, the kind of data that we used to care about in the 90s. It raked in $76 million worldwide against a $10.5 million budget. It was critically panned for the most part, and it still has a 54% on Rotten Tomatoes. But some people loved it, and Roger Ebert said, although it crash lands with an ending of soppy moralizing, but until that end, it's smart and merciless in the tradition of the original story.
I love his review for this one. It's so interesting.
He's such a beautiful writer, and I'm a huge fan of Roger Ebert. I'm very sad about him passing away.
Yeah. Well, and I will say the 3-star review that he wrote on this one seems like a good time to bring it up. Yeah. The opening line is, "Teenagers once went to the movies to see adults making love. Now adults go to the movies to see teenagers making love." And I was like, that just kind of captures that whole trend in the like late 90s, early 2000s, especially, where there was like
were a bunch of like raunchy teenage movies. I have a list of it somewhere, but it's like the one that really comes to mind is Wild Things. It was Denise Richards, Neve Campbell, and I don't remember who the dude was, but it was like
Matt Damon. No.
Not Rob Lowe. What am I thinking? I saw it pop up. It's on the IMDb suggestion.
Yeah, if you like Cruel
Intentions.
Yeah, you'll like Wild Things. There was also
Matt
that movie.
Dillon.
Matt Dillon.
Dillon. Yes, that's who.
There was also that movie a couple years earlier, Kids, by Larry something, that was like the introduction for Chloe Sevigny, and it was like this gritty, realistic look at the like New York City teenage like drug and sex world, and it was brutal. And this movie, by comparison to Kids, seemed really like sort of genteel and sophisticated.
That Kids movie had a lot of, I think Rosario Dawson was in that. I think that was her first movie too.
Oh yeah.
It was a big controversy at the time when it came out, and it's hard to watch. It's really hard to watch. Of course, at the time, I had just come out of film school, and I was like, what's the most controversial movie? Let's go to that one. Like, that was how I chose my entertainment at the time. I think that some of the awards that this film got are worth mentioning. It won the 2000 Blockbuster Entertainment Award for Favorite Supporting Actress in a Drama or Romance for Reese Witherspoon. And Sarah Michelle Gellar won the MTV Movie Award for Best Female Performance. Sarah and Selma Blair also won Best Kiss at the MTV Movie Awards. And I remember that they kissed on stage. And at the time, like a woman-on-woman kiss live on stage was like a huge
My mom
deal.
turned my TV off. I have like a flashbulb memory of that happening.
That's hilarious. This was followed, I think, by a couple of years later when Madonna and Britney and Christina all had like kisses on stage, and it was considered like super like controversial and taboo. And I'm glad that we seem to have moved on from that phase in our life of like straight girls kissing. Woo! All right,
that's true.
Yeah, it won the Teen Choice Award for Choice Drama. And it won the Teen Choice Award for Choice Sleazebag for Sarah Michelle Gellar. And Ryan Phillippe was also nominated at the same time for that. It won the Golden Trailer Award for Trashiest Movie. And something called the Canopus Award for Best Social Campaigns, which I think was probably a brand new category at the time.
Yeah. Is that the right year?
2020. Well, the movie came out in 99, so depending on when the award shows are and where their year falls, it'd be a 99 award or a 2020 award.
Yeah.
Well, wait. That's why I was confused. 2020, like years and years later.
No, 2000. I bet you meant 2000.
Oh,
right?
yeah. It must be. It must have been 2000. That's a typo.
I was like, wait a second. I was like, was there a resurgence or something?
Let me
during the pandemic that I missed.
Pandemic resurgence.
Yeah. Did I make a typo?
I could definitely understand that.
Or did IMDb make a typo? That's my question.
Let's blame IMDb.
2020 awards here. I don't know.
Well,
all right, it doesn't matter because the really interesting ones are like Trashiest and Best Kiss. It just was like people were talking about it, like, and people were calling it too so bad it's good, and all those.
It is an IMDb typo, by the way.
Good, haha. All right, but I should have caught it. It's illogical. Since we already started talking about it, at the time there were in the 90s there were some other notable movies that were like super sexy like this. Wild Things was in 1998. Basic Instinct I think was 94. Showgirls 97, Poison Ivy 92, and Kids 95.
Well, and if correct me if I'm wrong, I think Eyes Wide Shut came out in 99 too.
Yeah, Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
So that this sort of like, graphic sex talk, sex subject matter was just hip at the time.
Well, when was American Pie was in 1999. Also,
yeah.
That was kind of like, peak raunchy teen.
Couple months later.
Yeah.
It's one of my points. So we'll swing back to this.
Nice.
But yeah, it's yeah.
That's hilarious.
As far as teen movies go, there's a bunch that are right around this that all go in very interesting directions. But that came out in July. I believe it was July it came out.
And Election came
that
out
was this
later. And
that was this year too.
Oh,
yeah, 99.
God, I love that movie.
That's when I was like, oh, Reese Witherspoon is the real deal. Because anyone can play like a sweet girl, right? Like, who knows if that's really hard acting when you only see one role. But once I had seen Election, I was like, oh, the range is there. Like she's
well, when you really look at Reese Witherspoon, and again, it's a point, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but her range. Yeah. Her range in that year and a half or so of movies that she does, I watched them all since we got the extra week for this. And when I watched this one last, I had a very interesting, I'll have an interesting take on it. I'll just
why don't we dive in to our main discussion? And Jim, as our guest, you get to start wherever you want.
Oh, well, I don't want to hit that point yet because this has been driving me bonkers as I watch this movie and kind of listening to your awards that Sarah Michelle Gellar, and I can't remember which one that she beat out.
Sleazebag?
Yeah, the Sleazebag Award. Okay, so can we just...
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+. With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
So Kathryn's the quote unquote, villain of this movie, but she isn't the damn villain of the movie. She's not the damn villain of the movie. Okay. We walk down this path of femme fatale, but if you go through the point by point of the things that happen in this movie, let's just run through what Sebastian does. Okay. He blackmails a closeted gay man. He throws out multiple homophobic slurs at the time that probably was a lot more acceptable than today, but I digress. It wasn't. He publishes, the movie starts off with him publishing nude photos of his psych's daughter. He gets a girl drunk so that he can have sex with her. He gaslights Annette through the whole movie. He's just gaslighting her away. Now, listen, if Reese Witherspoon wasn't in this part, I still thought the part was written weakly, but if she wasn't in this part, it would have been horrid. The movie would have been horrible.
Oh,
but
yeah.
she at least holds her own. But he gaslights her. It's so disgusting,
predatory, and intentional about the way he lies. It's funny because he really reminds me of the Barney character in How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother, yes.
Without being as likable as Neil Patrick Harris.
But wait, y'all. But wait.
Yeah, there's more.
Let's give him a redemptive arc, shall we? Let's make him, and then we'll make him a martyr. It's so I guess typical of the time.
Yeah.
But this is what I really struggled with through the whole movie. The whole movie, I'm like, okay, so he's not the bad guy in the anyways.
He is a bad guy.
Yeah.
So did you know the original ending was not the publication of the journal, was not the big Sebastian, redemption. He dies, and then Annette vows to out Kathryn in revenge. And that's where it ends. And that would make the movie more of a whole, right? It turns out everyone is manipulative and corrupt under the right circumstances, and everyone can be loving and can want real connection under the right circumstances. I don't think Sebastian is redeemed. I think he's a child, and so I give him a little latitude for how he is at the end, where he's like, oh no, now I'm in love, but I don't want to be, but I do, but I have to keep reminding myself that for all his sophistication and wealth, he's 17.
Yeah, I love that point, because it is 100% not a coincidence that we do not see Sebastian or Kathryn's parents throughout this entire movie.
The only parent we see is Cecile's mother, right?
Yeah, and
we see Cecile's mother
parent.
And the psychologist. She's a mother.
Yeah,
she's treated as a mother in this, and I think there might be one more, but they're all we see the aunt.
Yeah.
Sebastian's aunt.
Oh, and we kind of see Annette's parents, her mother answers the door. Her father at the very end is giving that speech.
But Kathryn and Sebastian are basically just given
they are
complete free reign. And it's crazy too. You mentioned is she a psychiatrist? Or I don't know.
I don't know what she was.
Whatever. I tried to look at it just because I didn't want to say the wrong thing, but I couldn't find it. But the fact that, she gets onto her daughter, who is Tara Reid, which is another fun little surprise. I completely
Oh,
forgot
the connections
Tara
are
Reid was in this
coming.
movie.
The connections are coming.
But she's basically like, how could you be so stupid?
Oh,
Like,
and that is
blaming her.
immediately how society responds every time some woman's naked photos are on the internet. They're always like, she shouldn't have taken those
the
pictures.
pictures. It's always focused on her, and Sebastian is just, getting off scot-free. And I feel like that's, framing the movie in this time period, that's important because it's just so glaring throughout the whole thing.
I mean, it's child pornography. He should have been, pursued by the feds.
Oh yeah.
But
and
I guess when you're wealthy, like that kind of stuff just doesn't happen to you.
I think the lawyer in me was just like, I wonder if there was anything remotely resembling revenge porn laws at this time, because I
doubt
feel
it.
like, and there wasn't, because I remember when I was first coming up as a prosecutor in like 2013, 2014, we were in Texas. We were one of the first states that tried to get revenge porn laws on the books. I think New Jersey was another one, and maybe Alaska. But it was like a fight to be able to get that type of action criminalized. And it's being legislated, and the constitutionality of the statute and the wording is still being argued. But back in 1999, there was basically, I don't even think revenge porn was a term at that point in time. So it's interesting to watch it from the lens of today, where it's true, like the daughter Tara is immediately blamed. She's like, well, why, how could you be so stupid? Nothing about Sebastian, no sympathy at all from this mother to her daughter, just instant blame.
I mean, one of the themes, sort of behind the scenes and barely talked about themes of this movie, is how negligent wealthy parents are in this society, right? Like all of these parents are apparently completely self-centered, and they only care about like their reputation. That Swissy Kurt's character is so mad at her daughter because it looks bad for her during her big book launch. Like she's not, she doesn't care about her daughter's feelings, obviously, but it's really like, it's like she doesn't even think of her daughter as a person. And obviously, like Sebastian and Kathryn's parents could give two shits about what their kids are up to all summer. They like, the negligent parenting is off screen, because that's the point, is that there aren't any parents, but it's unreal. The only parents more negligent, I swear, are Dora the Explorer's parents. That kid gets into so many dangerous situations, and her parents are just like, hi, Dora, welcome home. Like, whatever.
Oh,
anyway.
That's funny. Have either of you seen Cruel Intentions 2?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
How is it?
I had seen it back in the day, and I watched it again right after I finished my rewatch of Cruel Intentions, just to, memories. And I was probably more entertained than I should have been, but because it's kind of a prequel, because it was initially going to be a TV series about, Kathryn and Sebastian and Annette, and like just a TV version of the movie. And we see Sebastian's dad and Kathryn's mom in Cruel Intentions 2, and it kind of gives you, a good idea of where they're coming from. And for Sebastian's character in particular, it gives him a very interesting backstory, and kind of messes with the canon of this movie. And I won't spoil it, just in case anybody out there is super interested in watching Cruel Intentions 2. But it was better than I thought and worse than I thought at the same time. Like it's an interesting take. I kind of wish it would have ended up being a TV show, because I think that would have been
with Amy Adams as Kathryn.
Yes.
Who, ironically enough, is
fascinating.
played the earlier version of Kathryn, but is older than Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah. We might as well talk about it now. This movie has, or this story, Les Liaisons
Oh, yeah.
Dangereuses has had many, many adaptations and
Mhm.
derivatives made. There is very well-known Dangerous Liaisons movie that came out maybe in the late 80s, early 90s. I'm gonna
88.
88, thank
Yeah.
you. With Glenn Close in the Kathryn role and John Malkovich in the Valmont Sebastian role. And Michelle Pfeiffer in Annette's role, Uma Thurman as Cecile, and Keanu Reeves as the music teacher. And other than the fact that it's set in 18th century France, the plot is incredibly similar.
Mhm.
You don't really need to see that movie if you've seen this one, but it is better. I mean, like the acting is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah,
It's still
objectively
kind of
better.
outrageous. It's meant to be. It's like a sex thriller story, so it's racy and raunchy, but with gowns and wigs and all that sort of 18th century French wealthy people stuff.
And was definitely like up for Oscars. That was
Yeah, that was a
that won
big
some
movie.
Oscars. Yeah.
Personally, I am a huge Glenn Close fan. I'll watch anything she does, even though some of the movies she's done are like questionable. She's done enough amazing things that I would watch her read the phone book.
I was just thinking about other, kind of risque teen movies of the 90s, and Romeo and Juliet, particularly, like Baz Luhrmann's version.
Oh,
That
with
stands out to
Claire
me,
Danes and Leonardo
and
DiCaprio.
Leo, like that. And then
That
the
came out in 96.
and the teen slasher movies, Ryan Phillippe and Sarah Michelle Gellar both were in I Know What You Did Last Summer. And, Scream had come out. When was Scream? 97? Maybe, or 90? I can't remember. But Reese Witherspoon turned down Nev Campbell's role, the role of Sidney Prescott in that movie. And I just, I think that's such an interesting choice because Nev Campbell had a hard time moving on from that Sidney Prescott role. And Reese Witherspoon was kind of able to go in so many interesting directions with her choices. Like I think of that Fear with Mark Wahlberg. Then you have this and Election coming out later the same year. And Reese Witherspoon, essentially, as an actress, was one of my points, just because I think she is the reason this movie was so impactful and successful. Like, not discounting Sarah Michelle Gellar, because she does a fantastic job in this role, but Reese Witherspoon's acting chops shine through more than anybody else's, I think, in this movie. And it irritates me watching, like, Ryan Phillippe. The only time I feel like his acting really kind of shines through is in that breakup scene where they're arguing in her room, and he gets all upset and he's shaking, even though I think Reese kind of overtakes him in that scene. But their online, good lord, their real life romance, I think, is a reason that this movie works so much.
Yeah, they have really good chemistry together. I agree he's kind of a weak point in the acting. He
He's good at
has
being smarmy.
sort of 2 or 3 facial expressions. There's like petulant sad and petulant sexy, and then there's like petulant crafty. Like I at one point wrote down moody, broody, pretty boys of the 90s with long flowing coats. Because I was
That's
thinking about
funny.
Angel, like it's just very
Yeah.
Angel. Yeah, but Reese Witherspoon brings a groundedness to the role, which is funny because the rest of the characters are really exaggerated and campy, and yet if her character had been campy, she just would have been what they call like a Mary Sue, like a dopey sweet character with she just wouldn't have been interesting. So by making her grounded, the rest of the like weird characters sort of revolve around her, because they're weird is the wrong word, arch characters revolve around her because she seems like the only real person in the story.
Pleasantville is the
Oh,
other
I love that
film I
movie.
forgot. That movie is absolutely fantastic.
Stop! You're mentioning all my movies for another point. No, it's good. No, it's
But it's like if anybody listening has not seen Pleasantville, you should go watch it immediately because that movie is brilliant. That might be my favorite Paul Walker movie also that he is in. But I think Reese Witherspoon, the depth that she brings to characters is like, that is just something innate. I think that's something that can't really be taught, and she is excellent. And I don't know, the one thing that I struggled with watching this movie as an adult, or an adultier adult, I'll say, being in my mid 30s, is I have a really hard time buying the Annette Sebastian falling in love part of the movie, because it feels so rushed. When I was younger, I guess I was just all in, like, oh, okay, they fell in love. Like, that's what happens in these movies. Like, it's quick, it's within 2 hours. But now, I don't know if they had not been together in real life and had that kind of chemistry. I don't know how. I don't know how it would have worked, but I still have a hard time seeing that she fell for his shit that quickly and forgave him. And I don't know, like, it just feels so rushed to me at this point.
Yeah, it was typical though of storytelling at the time, right? To be like,
Oh, yeah.
and then they kissed and they were in love. Like
Yeah.
it happens really fast. The key line, I think, is when she says, "I can't trust myself around you."
Mm.
I think it's like a strong infatuation more than love.
That
For
makes
her,
sense.
it's like this overwhelming feeling that she gets because she's got a boyfriend back home that she was so not sexually attracted to that she wrote a whole article about how she's going to wait. Like,
Yeah.
her attraction to Sebastian is the thing that happens to a lot of women who fall for bad boys because they think they could fix them. And
Mhm.
that's a sexy dynamic that we are taught when we're teenage girls by movies like this one.
Yeah.
And it's real though. Like, I fell for bad boys at that age too, because I was like, oh, maybe I could save him. It doesn't work out there, women. Don't do that.
Well, especially as a teenager, trying to differentiate between, hormones and sexual attraction as opposed to actual compatibility or real feelings or anything like that. Like, that's a lot to navigate and deal with.
Yeah. It's like
What?
Romeo and Juliet, right? Like, they were 15 years old. They met and they were like, let's get married. We're in love. And then
Juliet was
tragedy.
13.
Juliet was 13, right? So, like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why we don't let teenagers enter into contracts and things like that. They don't make good decisions.
It's true.
I don't know. I see. So the whole, like, and I think this was a big problem with me with this movie is like, so Annette was the one, like, steady. This movie's supposed to be super farcical. Like, if you watch Dangerous Liaisons, like, it's every character is ridiculous. And they put it, it's they don't put it. It was written in the 1700s, so it kind of fits that kind of motif.
Mhm.
Reese Witherspoon is super grounded in this movie. The only real person, as you said, and I didn't get any chemistry between her and Ryan Phillippe at all, except for the sex scene, to be perfectly honest with you, which I immediately was like, are they really having sex? And they weren't. A
lot of people had that question.
Yeah, that was a big rumor at the time.
Yeah, but he's so stilted when he's trying to pretend to be turning over a good leaf. I'm just sitting there watching this going, okay, now if it was that easy to, like, meet girls and act that idiotic to be a bad boy, then everybody would have been doing it. Like, there were so many scenes where I was like, nope, no one's going to buy this. Oh, she bought it. Okay. Nope, no one's going to buy this. Oh, she bought it. Okay. Oh, he showed up at the top of the escalator. Oh, she bought it. Oh, now she, after writing that article, is now going to have sex with. It's just, oh, and he turns her down. Like, okay, come on. So I had such a hard time with this because I was like, there is no way Reese Witherspoon is going to fall. And maybe that was my problem. All the other characters were so much of a parody and she wasn't. And It's just so much struggled with that. Like Joshua Jackson, who we haven't even talked about, is such a parody of a gay person.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the football player, like, again, we talked about this in Phases, the football player who's gay and he's like high-fiving, like, I had sex with this girl. Ha ha.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, and then you have Reese Witherspoon, who's just like prim and proper, except for in a normal way, as opposed to, you know, the way that
She's not
Sarah
a
Michelle.
caricature.
Correct. Yeah. She's not a parody. Like, she's not, everybody else is just a gigantic parody. And we come back to the scenes with her and I'd be like, oh, okay. So now we go to the regular movie part. But yeah, so I loved her in the movie, but it was almost like, to me, it was like a round, a square trying to fit in a round hole.
See, I think it is very jarring to see her normalcy compared to some of the other characters, especially, my God.
I don't know. She's a little over the top too.
A little.
Like, let's volunteer at the old folks home, and I wrote an article about being a virgin. I mean,
very goody.
There's substance to the part that is a little, come on, give me a break.
But the most relatable she is to me is when she does end up falling for Sebastian and sleeping with him, because there are, I can't tell you how many people I know, especially growing up when I did and where I did, where, in Houston, which is still, big city. It's not quite the same as some other parts of Texas, but there's still this kind of heavy purity culture that was going on at the time when I grew up. And the number of my friends and people I knew who were committed to, either not having sex until they were married or waiting, and there would be like this one guy that they end up falling for, and it's not an uncommon story. So when she falls for him, I'm just like, yep, been there, seen that, like that happens. But it's the rest of it that bugs me. Like, her forgiving him so quickly doesn't make sense. If I found out that some guy made a bet to sleep with me and then I slept with him, like, I don't think I would get over it that fast. Like,
what would get you over it is if he would have given you a journal, and in that journal he talked about all the bastard things that he did, except for those 2 pages where he goes,
but
I'm falling in love.
Right. It just reinforces the story. She's told herself that maybe Sebastian deep down inside is this really wonderful person, and he just needs the right person to love him.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
could
working.
have fixed him. Like, that's where she gets to. She's
and then
like, it was working.
She has this moment where she's like, I have to talk to him, right? Like, he's touched me enough with this like total honesty and vulnerability that I really want to talk to him. And then he dies. So she's like, she's stuck forever with regard to him in that place of, maybe I can save him. Like, he becomes this sort of like mythic,
not to mention,
person
he
in her
dies
brain,
saving her. Like, that just kind of seals it.
You're gonna love him forever for that, even though it wasn't real love. It was, it was like a.
Well, did he write about grinding with his stepsister in his journal while they're plotting to take her virginity? Like, that's
probably not. But he did write about sleeping with Cecile the day before sleeping with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but Cecile.
I mean,
Selma Blair's awesome in this too, by the way.
Oh, she's so funny.
It's so funny. Like
uber parody, like of everything you would expect to see. But I mean, every single scene she's in is so freaking ridiculous. Oh.
And so wonderfully naive. And when, Sarah Michelle Gellar is talking to her about how, like, everybody sleeps around, you just don't talk about it. And she's like, you mean like a secret society?
Oh, God, she's such a dork.
It's just like, what the hell is happening? I was like, how sheltered are you?
But what my favorite quote, though, is when she's talking to Sean Patrick Thomas. They were talking about, he mentioned, like, Dr. King. And she goes, Dr. King is my favorite.
Yeah. Like, such a ridiculous thing to say. She's so dopey and lovable though. like in a
Yes.
really annoying way. Like I would never want to hang out with her.
No, it's just painful.
It's painful.
But
I
that
do
poor
love Selma
girl.
Blair though. She's fantastic.
And I feel like the character that I feel, well, I'm still kind of torn about him since he ends up sleeping with Kathryn, is poor Ronald.
He is sort of the nicest person in this whole mess.
And
Is he though?
I have a hard time believing that he was really falling for Cecile.
There, if you,
dope.
The
Like-
second time I watched it, it almost, I really feel like they were, like, they give him a couple of really ridiculous scenes, like when he's walking down the hallway saying the black man's gone.
Oh yeah.
And and if you go back and you watch it with a lens of he's doing the same thing that Sebastian's doing and just watch him,
It's kind of predatory.
it sort of feels that way. But I mean, when she unslides that drawer and I forgot about that part, and I'm like, who's she sleeping with? And he unslides the drawer and he's just sitting there, and I was like, okay.
Good job, Ronald. Although that scene between him and Bunny, Cecile's mom, Christine Baranski, all I wrote in my notes was like, holy racism. Like,
it's so bad.
Happening?
When she's like, I got you off the streets?
Yeah, he's like, I live at 59th and Park. Like, what the hell are
I have to tell
talking about?
you, I had a boss in the mid-90s who, when my friend quit the job after a couple of years, and this boss was what we called Howl at the Moon crazy. She was unhinged. Well, my friend quit the job, and this woman was like, I found you. I discovered you. I got you off the streets. And I'm like, didn't she go to Wellesley? Like, I don't think you rescued her from her Wellesley degree.
Oh God.
Like, it was both of our first jobs out of college. It paid crap, and it was a crappy job in a lot of ways. But like, that I'll never forget the "I got you off the streets" comment, because I was just like, oh, that's a depth of racism I didn't really realize. Like this delusion.
It is so shocking. And when she's like, don't give me any of that racist crap. So she said, my husband and I gave money to Colin Powell.
Oh, no, that's the worst.
I was like, that doesn't make it better.
Talk about selling the scene, though, with just the look on your face. The look on his face is so priceless. He's like, well, screw this. He's
like, that's... Oh, there's not... I can never talk to you. You're speaking a completely different language. Like,
I will say, and I'm definitely not going to name any names, but if I were to walk through my life and mention the people that would say that, the list would be far too long. Far too long. And that was written in 99, and I'm talking about 2023. So
well, there are still people who to this day, like I have heard people say, well, I'm not racist, I voted for Barack Obama. And I'm like, you don't get like a cookie for that. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah, it's not a switch where you did that and then like you're off the hook for racism. But it's also like this thing, the same horrible racist boss I had, she had been married to a black man, and so she had mixed race kids, and it was her get out of jail free card for being called a racist. And
like, no,
I think people really believe stuff like that. Like, well, my best friend is black, so I can't possibly be a racist. There's a lot of people who are looking for like racism is really huge and complicated and deeply layered into our civilization. There's no like, I did one thing and now I'm out of it. We're all in it. Like we're all
not
marinating in racism.
That's the thing. Like it's not as simple and clear. It's like not only people who identify with, the KKK are racist. Like that's one reason why there are things called implicit biases or subconscious biases, that you're not aware that you have them until you're open-minded enough to actually sit there and reflect and critically think about it. And this whole scene between Ronald and Bunny was just, it's so cringy, but I feel like we're not any better today Like,
Oh, I
this
bet that
was-
scene still happens all the time.
That's the thing. That's what was kind of painful watching it. I was just like, damn, because I think we have made some significant progress when it comes to like the revenge porn aspect of it and that type of manipulation. But the racist undertones here, I was like, nope, this feels the same.
There's such a push for people wanting to be able to say and do whatever they want. It's weird because I think there's more of an awareness of what's right and what's wrong today, but there are certain people that feel like they can just say or do anything. So it's funny because that conversation still happens today via the people who think the 90s are the way it should be and the 80s are the way it should be. It's just, it's very, again, looking at it through perspective, you'd think 30 years later, 20 years later, that those conversations wouldn't be happening anymore, at least be putting down. Whereas now you have kind of a disconnect between, multiple groups of people where you have some people saying that's completely wrong. That's not part of my life. And then other groups of people like, that's perfectly fine to say. As a matter of fact, I said it yesterday.
I'm just being honest. Or what happened to free speech?
Yeah.
Well, it's like that backlash,
Yeah.
that reactionary backlash, and the whole idea of if you have been in the position of the privileged or the oppressor, as soon as equality starts to creep up and there's a push for that, then you start to feel as if you're being oppressed, even though, that's not the case at all. But that we're seeing that backlash in multiple ways now, and it's really interesting to see people who recognize it for what it is, as opposed to those who are insistent that my free speech is being trampled on. It's like that's
But
not what
see, this is why movies like this though resonate for me. And I thought, in some ways it didn't hold up, but I think watching it, like, it could be a movie that's put out today. And I we talk about it being about the elite, but the reality of it, being a teacher, to say that I don't see adults that aren't there for their kids, and by that, not in the community that I'm in, we don't necessarily have billionaires or anything like that, but we do it in a different way in today's society. We have, we're on screens right now. I think in a lot of ways there's a massive disconnect between some parents and their kids that maybe is universal, maybe more so today, because I think I don't think there's more to do, but I think there's easier things for kids to do other than be present with your families. So I as I was watching this, thinking how ridiculous it is that we've never seen these people's parents in the same respect. I see it every day. I'm sitting in my classroom right now. I see it every day in my classroom where, parents are busy.
Yeah.
I'm using the quote signs here because, it's, I think that it is an interesting kind of parallel to a universal, message that, kids that are left on their own volition sometimes will do incredibly stupid things.
And kids
That makes me
without
nervous.
realistic limits are especially dangerous, right? These kids have wealth and privilege and access and power and time and, whole mansions to themselves to get into trouble. And
look at the car he's driving.
Oh my
I
God, that car is so beautiful though.
It's so pretty.
But like, what is that?
That
Like
apparently-
$120,000 car? It's ridiculous.
That apparently the girlfriend of like 1.5 dates gets. Like,
Somehow
how
she
did
gets
she
that
get the
car.
car? Yeah.
maybe the parents just never came back.
Maybe the keys were in the journal. And so implicitly he gave her the car before he died.
I will
don't know.
say,
Made
before
for
I
a great
forget,
ending shot. Yeah.
that's true. The one thing I was just like internally cracking up. I had just rewatched Becoming Part 1 and Becoming Part 2 before we podcasted it. on it the other day, and the scene where Ronald is leaving Kathryn's bedroom, Sarah Michelle Gellar yells out, "Call me!" And
it's
it
just like
sounded like, yes, Becoming Part 1, where she's like saying "call me" to all of her friends, and I started cracking up. And I was just like, oh, this isn't lovely. Like, that was clearly probably not intentional at all. It's just the way Sarah Michelle Gellar says "call me" to someone, but I thought it was wonderful.
I noticed that too, and I was like, oh, there's a little hint of Buffy in there.
It's so cute. Like, it felt endearing. I guess we haven't talked about Kathryn too much.
No.
Yeah,
I have a feeling this podcast is going to go really long.
like,
yeah, I had a whole point about Kathryn as a tragic figure. I think Sarah Michelle Gellar does this interesting performance that is a performance on top of a performance. I think Kathryn is incredibly sad and lonely and feels very unloved in the world. She is hinging her hopes on Sebastian actually loving her. That's why she hasn't slept with him yet. And she says at one point, like, you don't love me. And at no point before that has she talked about love, right? She's always been like, you want me, I'll fuck your brains out, whatever. But what she really wants is someone to love her. And she has this whole performance of iciness and manipulation and viciousness and meanness. And, you know, some of it is for her own entertainment, but it's all because she's just really fucking empty inside. And she makes me so sad because I see the performance on top. Like, you could see the sadness underneath the viciousness. And it's, like, when I first watched the movie rewatch, I was like, Sarah Michelle Gellar's performance is a little like artificial and arch. And is that just because it's camp? And then I was like, oh, no, it's intentionally a little off because she's acting like she's this mean because it's the only way she could think of to not get hurt herself.
It's like a shield.
Yeah, it's so sad to me at the end. And when she gets like discovered and she's crying, it's not that she's going to be in trouble, because let's face it, like a prep school kid who gets found with like a tiny amount of cocaine, like she'll be fine. But it's that she feels exposed and unloved even more than ever before. It's like she's like, now I don't even have my shield. I'm so sad about her story. But
you like, so the one thing that you talk about Still Slaying a ton is the looks that Sarah Michelle Gellar gives for Buffy, where she can go into this very vulnerable, like the just facial, her facials are just amazing. She does that in this movie multiple times. When she, at the right before she sends Ronald, whenever she sets him off on the ultimate kind of kill scene at the end, well, accidental death scene, but when she triggers him off, and she lasers Sebastian, you know, I don't love you, you know, I don't want you, I would never want someone like you.
I never sleep with losers.
Yeah. And then he walks away, and there's that 5 seconds where the camera stays on her, and she goes from being that femme fatale to being her regular self. The way that only Sarah, like, she does it so well, and it's on point. The way that she can make her face look,
it's
so
a micro expression. It's like, it's amazing how well she does it.
And she does that, and she only, I mean, most of her scenes are with Sebastian, so really she's only given a shot to do it with him. But she does it 2 or 3 times in the movie, and before the end scene, and then the end scene, you can see, you know, the facade that she has built through her whole life, which is unfortunate, because going back to my original point, you know, she has the fake life of being a goody-goody, which she doesn't love. Like, this is a girl who wants to live like Sebastian lives. She wants to be freer sexually. She wants to do all the, and she's sitting there watching Sebastian do it.
Yeah.
And then he gets to fall in love, and she's just sitting there like, what the fuck? Like, so.
Yeah. Why does a man get to be redeemed from that behavior? Which in 2023 still happens all the time. It's like, oh, he left his bad boy ways behind for her, and she's a 22-year-old virgin that he's marrying. Like, that's always the story.
Well, people still call, Taylor Swift, now that she's been named Person of the Year, regardless of how you feel about her music, people talk about her being promiscuous and calling her a skank and a slut. Like, open a comment section, and it is wild to me. And I was like, nobody cares that they care a little bit now that Leonardo DiCaprio seems to break up with everyone who turns 26. At this point, like, nobody really talks about
They
that.
talk about it, but it's like it's like amusing. It's kind of charming.
Like they talk about Ryan Phillippe in this movie.
Yes.
Like, oh, he's a bad boy. He's naughty. And with her, it's like she doesn't deserve her financial success. She should be killed. She's a skank. Like it's a different reaction.
It's violent.
She has a quote to him right at that last conversation where she says to him, like, because he's fallen in love, your reputation's going to be ruined. So his reputation's going to be ruined because he falls in love, because she quote unquote, you're pussy whipped. And then the follow-up was, and her reputation is going to be ruined because she's sleeping with you. Like it's just mind-boggling. But and
it's such a small world they live in too, where like it's your reputation among this like 150 person prep school elite community. Like, get a little bit of distance from this insular, stupid, like frivolous world you live in.
When you are a teenager, it feels like, your whole world. Like, it's hard to see outside of that sometimes.
Well, and today it's, again, and social media is not there, but today it can be a lot bigger than that.
Well, wouldn't this movie have been on the internet?
Yeah, wouldn't this movie have been interesting in a he said, she said perspective, where we get, because this movie's really basically through Sebastian's perspective, but wouldn't it have been fun? We have the whole Little Red Riding Hood motif, and I think one of the books that I read with my kids every year is the version of Little Red Riding Hood through the wolves' perspective. Like, wouldn't it have been fun to see this movie through Kathryn's perspective as opposed to the worldview of Sebastian's perspective? I think it would have been a richer. I was frustrated this time around because I wanted her perspective, because with a little bit of a tilt, we could see, the strong female lead as opposed to the, in my opinion, weak male lead.
Like, she is very sexualized, and there is a lot of, what they call the male gaze. Although her character is presenting herself as sexual too, in a very overt way, so it's hard to blame the male gaze in that case. But I'm really glad, Jim, that you brought up the phrase femme fatale, because I wanted to talk about the words and what it means and what it's evolved to mean. It's a favorite topic of mine. I love femme fatales. I first sort of became familiar with the concept when I was studying film noir in a film history class, and femme fatales were a huge part of the film noir tradition, right? There was all these like beautiful women, dames, that would come into the gritty detective's office with some love-related problem that they needed solved, and then it would turn out that like she was poison, or she was manipulating the situation so that the detective would kill her husband, or the connotation was always that the femme fatale was a woman who got you killed, and a lot of that was through the use of her femininity as a weapon, right? Like, she lured
seduction.
You in.
Yeah.
It was very beautifully parodied in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when Jessica Rabbit says, "I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way," because that is what a lot of the femme fatales looked like in those noir films. The phrase has come to be used in a lot more wider capacities, and women have sort of been reclaiming it as a powerful term and not like a derogative term. But I kind of like the old version, but I think it's just because I'm old. Now it's come to mean like a deadly woman, or a dangerous woman, or and sometimes it's like just a woman who's powerful and could kill you. But I think it should be stuck to like sort of them, not like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She is not a femme fatale, right? No. She is perfectly capable of killing and is very powerful, but that's not her shtick. But like Faith, kind of a femme fatale.
Well, Daryl Hannah's in Kill Bill, like I feel
Yeah.
like it's evolved to now that's what people think of
Or
when you hear
like
femme
a deadly
fatale.
woman, or like Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde.
Yes. And I think of like, Sharon Stone and Basic Instinct is always one of the first
Oh
one that
yeah,
pops into my head.
that's sort of like the peak femme fatale. Totally.
Which was around this time.
So towards the end of the film, when Kathryn does send Ronald out on his mission, she says that Sebastian hit her. And that scene was filmed. There's a scene filmed where Sebastian does hit Kathryn, but they cut it out of the film to leave it ambiguous as to whether or not he hit her. Until I read that, I had always assumed he didn't hit her, and she just said that to rile Ronald up. I think it's such an interesting narrative choice to take that scene out. They took it out because it didn't go with the dialogue. Like, him hitting her didn't go with the story and what he was saying about being in love now. It was like they were like, that didn't work, so they just took it out. But it would have changed so much of how I felt about the end of the film. Like, Sebastian would have never been the slightest bit redeemed for me if he had actually hit Kathryn.
I think that would have changed the entire ending, because I had no idea that they had originally had that film. Like, the plan was actually that he had hit her, that was true. I just always assumed this was something she knew would get Ronald fired up. Yeah, and she used it to her advantage, and I was like, that's pretty twisted that she would make up this fact. But the fact that he actually hit her changes a lot in how I perceive the ending and how I perceive her. That makes her even more of a tragic figure, because even, if you just Google Cruel Intentions reviews, you see a lot about how Sebastian is his character can be redeemed, but Kathryn's character, there aren't any redeeming qualities, and that still boggles my mind as to what.
I don't agree.
He fell in love.
I mean, I think both of them can be redeemed.
Yeah,
because they're 16 or 17 years old, and this is like, there's not a lot of consequences to what they're doing until he gets killed.
If you have sympathy for Sebastian's character, his, how he was raised, the lack of parental involvement, you have to have that same sympathy for Kathryn. Like, they are both pretty much in the same spot in terms of the societal pressures on them, the way they were raised, the freedom that they have, the lack of boundaries, and the lack of, what seems like any sort of parental love or involvement. And it is wild how many people see Sebastian as a tragic figure in this movie, probably helped by the fact that he's dead in the end, and see Kathryn as this villain. And that's what you had brought up at the very beginning, Jim, that she is not the villain in this movie.
She doesn't have, up to a point, she doesn't have aside from grinding with her stepbrother a few times, she doesn't, the only thing that happens, she triggers some people, right? Like, basically Sebastian. And she's not a super nice person, but really, she doesn't really the only thing that happens to her is she loses people to Cecile.
Yeah. And that's where it starts from, is a place of hurt that her ex-boyfriend has left her for Cecile.
By the way, her ex-boyfriend is
Jerry O'Connell's brother.
Charlie O'Connell, who they look like identical, which is hilarious. Like, because I paused it, I'm like, that looks like the kid from Stand By Me, but it wasn't. It was his brother. But yeah, and I think that gets lost in this story. It's only, the movie's an hour and a half, so it's super short, and you get it starts running down this path so fast that you forget that the whole reason why this started was because she got dumped for Cecile. Now, first of all, we need to meet this dude, because
like, why is
who the
he
hell
worth
is
it?
gonna dump? Yeah. So, anyways, but she doesn't physically do anything near the list of things that I listed. I didn't even list all of Sebastian's stuff. Like, there's 8 or 9 things in the movie that he does that she doesn't, at least we aren't presented with in the movie.
Like, her initial plot is to first she wants Sebastian to seduce Cecile. And when he says he won't do it, she's like, all right, I'll just, fan the flames of what I see happening already with the music teacher. Like, yeah, it's manipulative and her intentions aren't great, but like, it's not that bad. Like, oh,
Cecile
you like your
was
music
already
teacher.
going down that road.
Yeah,
Like,
all she did was facilitate it, and I mean, she rats Cecile out to her mother. That's a bitch move, but
yeah, that
it was also funny.
the
And-
dollhouse. Oh gosh.
And the kissing scene, like, I don't know, that was actually almost a little bit like big sister friendly. Like,
I
helpful.
like watched that and I was like, it was almost like this window of like, why is this here? Because she actually felt like she was helping. It was very interesting, like how
For
you can look.
instance, it's much so people that have seen Cruel Intentions 2, the parallel to this is a scene with a horse in Cruel Intentions 2, and it is it's very different. It's much more like overtly manipulative and sexual and just kind of icky. Like, and so when it's wild.
Jim
But
is
when,
losing it,
you
you
know,
guys.
but when I watched Cruel Intentions
forgot about
2,
that.
right? But it's so uncomfortable. Like when I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is way worse than the kissing scene. And watching those two back to back kind of helped put this movie in perspective, because one, you do see Kathryn's mother in Cruel Intentions 2. You see how her relationship with her mother is and how she desperately wants her mom's approval, and you kind of get some insight as to why she is the way she is. But the thing that Kathryn does and like earlier on just feels way ickier to me than what she does in this movie. And I don't know, it's interesting that kissing scene, like, yes, I don't love the gratuitous let's make two hot straight girls kiss type of moment, but it makes sense for the characters. I can go on that,
And like, maybe
mental journey with
Kathryn
them.
is a little bisexual and is actually kind of enjoying herself.
That
And
experimenting.
I don't know. I mean, before I had ever kissed a boy, I had a lot of nerves about it and questions. And like, I didn't kiss a girlfriend, but we like talked about it and we all practiced kissing our hands
your
together.
hands.
Yeah, we'd be like making out with our own hands, because that's exactly what teenage girls do, is they like share those kind of things with each other and like try to like muddle their way through it the way that they can, because you don't have any guidelines on how to like learn how to kiss. Nobody teaches
the way
you that.
Cecile reacted to that kiss, it's definitely stirred something up in her.
Yeah.
So it's just, I like this whole movie, their hormones are all over the place, and luckily they're all like in their 20s, so it's not as creepy.
Sarah Michelle Gellar did an interview on that scene, and apparently in New York City that day, it was I think it was in November when they filmed it, but it was one of those like warm days in New York City. So of course, what do people do on a warm day in New York City?
Oh, they all go to the park.
Central Park. So she's like, we show up for the scene and there's literally hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but there's thousands of people like in the park. And she's like, boy, you want to talk about, becoming an actress? That was the day I felt like I was becoming
funny.
I was becoming an actress. But
they must have had so many gawkers. That's hilarious.
Right? Especially in 1999. She's like,
ooh, two girls kissing in public. Whoa.
And one of them's Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Now that would have moved me in a lot of different ways. Like back in the day, I mean, it's
Sarah
a really Michelle Gellar
sexy scene, right?
She is just she is a sexy person. Like she has this
an unintentional. It's very unintentional. Like,
that vulnerability plays into it.
In fact, when she tries to act overtly sexual, it comes off as parody. Whereas when she's just being Sarah Michelle Gellar or Kathryn or Buffy, she's incredibly sexy. It's this, it's really funny because when she acts really sexual in this film, it makes her seem younger even than she does in other scenes, because it's so clear that it's an act, and it just makes it seem
Over
like
the
she's
top.
just like a child. Like she's just play acting at being a grown up, and it's
which works so well in this movie.
it's
Well,
exactly
and
what's happening.
when I was like sneak watching this movie as a middle schooler, my perspective of their like the sexual scenes is very different than it is as an adult. Cause I still remember that line, you know, talking about how now I understand things that went over my head when they're talking about the bet, and kind of what seals his deal is her saying to Sebastian, like, I'll let you put it anywhere you want.
Oh yeah.
And I remember back like middle school me being like, well, where else would he put, like, what is she talking about? I was like, what does that mean? And then he's just like, yeah, that's it. And I was like, huh? And now I'm like, oh, okay, like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it does seem over the top as an adult watching it compared to when I was in middle school. I was like, oh, what the hell? Like, is
Like,
this
ooh,
what it's
sexy
like?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're in high school, I was like, that's a lot. And it's kind of funny to me now how it does seem, you know, like a parody and exaggerated, but it's just
I want to talk about the whole concept of camp and what camp is, because this film is definitely camp. It's
for sure.
It's intentionally campy, right? It's meant to be exaggerated. It's meant to be a caricature.
I sure hope so, because if it's not, then
like that's
because
hilarious.
that director hasn't done a whole lot since this movie, and it makes it does make me wonder if it wasn't supposed to be as campy, but
yeah,
he
was like,
so
oops.
The definition of camp today is something so outrageously artificial, affected, inappropriate, or out of date as to be considered amusing. Susan Sontag defined camp as performing, quote, culture, unquote. Camp was originally, it's unclear exactly how the word came to mean this, but it was originally used to describe overtly gay behavior. And it was attributed to things like drag and other types of performance that were popular in the gay community, like pre-Stonewall, when the gay community was very much underground. And this form of exaggerated expression was part of their culture. And like a lot of things that originate in gay culture, it was appropriated by the mainstream and diluted and turned into something that is often used by white women. Again, white women appropriate so much. And it's much more broadly used now. I love camp because I love any form of expression that can shock you out of complacency while you're viewing, right? So that your brain is more awake. You're exposed to new ideas, even if they're crazy ideas or exaggerated ideas. They take your brain in new directions. They're good for you. They're a good way to expose people to new information because the format wakes you up to receive the new information. All right, that's my little film school bit. Examples of other things that are considered camp: Cher, like all of her Bob Mackie outfits and stuff. John Waters, the films of John Waters, he's like the king of camp. If you haven't seen any John Waters films, like it's so worth your time. He is raunchy and outrageous and bizarre and wonderful. Madonna, lots of time camp. Lady Gaga, major camp.
Oh gosh, yes.
Rocky Horror Picture Show, both intentionally and unintentionally campy. It's definitely got one of those cult statuses that comes from being like so bad it's good. Some other great examples are like the Addams Family movies are camp. Wednesday show on Netflix is camp.
Yes.
Jim has just come to the camera with a John Waters book called Make Trouble, which is awesome.
It's one of my favorite, but he's one of my favorite human beings on the planet.
He's so subversive in everything that he does. I love him.
Love it.
He has a great line, like, if you are dating someone and they take you to their house and they don't have any books, don't fuck them. And I'm like, yeah, that's really good advice.
That's legit.
Some more camp: Mean Girls, Clueless, Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion.
God, I love Romeo and Michelle's High School
Yeah, we should cover that on this podcast. Yes. A Simple Favor. Some unintentional camp are movies like Glitter, that Mariah Carey movie that everyone makes fun of so much. Geely, like just bad movies generally. And the ways that this particular movie, Cruel Intentions, are camp: you know, exaggerated and outrageous behavior, self-conscious feeling of self-parody, casting of a camp hero like Louise Fletcher, who, if you don't know, played Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and is like beloved in the gay and camp communities. The scene that takes place after Cecile's first time with Sebastian, when they're like out under the tree, she's eating cherries, right?
I know.
It's like
I love
A
it.
bowl of cherries.
Yeah, she lost her virginity and she's sitting there like eating little cherries. It's hilarious.
Perfect.
That are still there the next day.
Yeah.
Because Sarah Michelle, Kathryn eats one of the cherries the next day.
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's awesome. A side question would be, is Buffy the Vampire Slayer camp? The movie certainly was. I think the show is. I'd love to hear from our listeners on that topic, and maybe we'll talk about it next time on the season 2 wrap up.
Yeah.
It can be.
Yeah.
And it's best, and I think that's what makes those big moments, some of which we have not gotten to yet. But those big moments really stand out because it's camp, and then when it hits real,
it's so real. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there are definitely campy aspects of Buffy. I mean, it's like it's demons and stuff.
100%. Yeah.
So I love camp. I will continue to love camp. I will always
like
want
Barbarella.
Oh my god, I love that
Like
movie.
that's great.
That is one that I'm always like, were they trying to be campy? They
I
must have
know.
been trying, because it's such a wackadoodle movie. And I love its use here, but sometimes camp can be uncomfortable over the line for some people. And I know that the overt sexuality of this film can be uncomfortable for some people to watch. I can imagine if I had tried to watch this with my mother, she would have said some pretty disparaging things about it and turned it off or left the room. But fortunately, I never had to try to do that because I was out of the house by the time the movie came out.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
One thing that we've kind of touched upon, and that's because as I was watching this movie and then kind of reflecting on the era, and then I went back and I looked at some of the other movies that we've already talked about. Actually, we've nailed almost all of them. It really made me realize that there was a core group of young actors in this time period that really very similar to the Brat Pack of the 80s, this kind of new Brat Pack.
Yeah.
Maybe the Buffy pack or something, but you know, when you think about like the movie, we talked about Pleasantville. Pleasantville is noteworthy for this area because there's a certain actor who was used as a extra at first. Well, actually as an extra, but he did all of the basketball scenes. He was the choreographer for all the basketball scenes, and he is in the movie. If you fleetingly pay attention, and that is one Mark Blucas.
That's right.
One of his first, you know. So when you start putting these movies together and you realize the friendships that they have. So Pleasantville was the first movie I wanted to talk about in this Brat Pack kind of.
So good.
They came out a year before, and Reese Witherspoon was Tobey Maguire's sister in the movie, and I don't remember her name offhand, but she was not a main player in the movie. She was and wasn't at the same time. It was really, again, focused on the male character.
But Jennifer outside of Pleasantville, Mary Sue.
Yes, Mary Sue, which we could get into we should do Pleasantville at some point. But the interesting part about her character in that movie is she was kind of the Kathryn of the movie. She very much outwardly wanted to express her sexuality with Paul Walker at the time, and right at the beginning of the movie when they first get sucked into the movie, like she has this moment in the car with Paul Walker, and it's one of the greatest movies because they get swept into 50s television and no sex, nothing, and they go to like the kissing point, and you hear a bunch of things and all of that, but one of the great moments is when they drive back and It's this black and white, and Paul Walker just has this look of amazement on his face, and he looks over and he sees this red rose. But her character in that is absolutely fantastic, and just so much depth. And I know that like that maybe was the launching point for her to realize like what she could do in a movie, even with small parts, and why she held firm to this movie. But anyways, Pleasantville, that had Blucas, American Pie that came out later, that Allison Hannigan was in. She's part of this kind of little crew. You have She's All That with Freddie Prinze, and Sarah Michelle Gellar's actually in that. She's in a couple of scenes in the background, I think, just for him. There's just a series of movies that have connectivity with Freddie Prinze, Reese Witherspoon, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Mark Blucas, Matthew Lillard from the Scream movies.
Sarah
Paul Walker
Gellar's in Scream also.
Yes, she's
and
Scream
Joshua
2.
Jackson is in Scream 2. He's just not credited, which is fun.
Joshua Jackson, Ryan Phillippe, Jennifer Love Hewitt, who shows up in this movie in the magazine. If you go to Scooby-Doo, you've got She's All That.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Rachel
Lee Cook.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rachel Lee Cook was
Rachel
in
Lee-
Scooby-Doo?
She was Velma.
I thought Linda Cardellini was Velma.
Oh, Linda Cardellini was. No, I take that back. Yes, Linda Cardellini.
Now I'm IMDbing all these people.
But anyways, it is these youngins that were my age at the time that played all younger people, and then weirdly played older people too at the same time, because like they were really the core of this young like push in the late 90s and early 2000s, and not really many of them like took. They all kind of branched off into their own things. Paul Walker ended up passing away, and he's got his own issues that I don't want to get into. But they all have had careers. They're all around, and they've all done things. And you've got a lot, Freddie Prinze just decided, I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad, and he does a lot of other things around. And it's just very interesting, kind of this core and these core movies that kind of for me and for the generation below the millennials, I think has been kind of growth worthy. But I really loved kind of this era of a new Brat Pack, and no one ever talks about it, but all of these people are still friends to this day, and it's very interesting to see how they all kind of interacted, and all of those movies of the time kind of connect from one to another to another to another, and they either ended up in TV shows later, they ended up in B movies, or they ended up in new TV shows now. But it is very interesting
or
to
like
see all
Reese
of these
Witherspoon,
characters.
they're like this force in Hollywood.
Yes.
Where she's like getting these amazing feminist stories told. I'm a huge fan of her production
just
career.
that year, she had Pleasantville, she had Election, she had
Election,
which was fantastic, by the way. Again, she just, and these roles that she had are so all over the place. And if you watch them all, to me, the far and away weakest of the bunch is Cruel Intentions. I think all of these other roles to me just had so much depth and was more written for her, whereas this one had they changed it, but you could still tell had they have waited maybe another year and put more time into it, and I think elevated her character even more. She could have been like, seeing her, that scene with her and Kathryn at the end where they acted like they didn't know each other. Like, it's such, like, I was like, that I wanted more of that.
I didn't know anyone else was in here. I'm sorry. I'm Annette Hargrove. Catherine Murtoy. Have we met? I don't think so. Your father's the new headmaster at Manchester, right? That's right. I was sorry to hear about your brother. Are you okay? I'll be fine. Did you know Sebastian? You might say that. Such a tragedy, isn't it? Yes, it is. I'll leave you alone now. Are you sure you're gonna be okay? I'm here if you need a friend. That's great. I know it sounds really trite, but sometimes when I feel I can't go on, I turn to Jesus and he helps me through it. Thank you. Okay. I'll see you around campus. looking forward to it. Freak.
Yeah, that was an amazing scene. There was one piece of trivia I read that the original screenplay for this was written in 12 days. And I was like, yeah, kind of shows.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
like we can tell.
they lifted the story from Dangerous Liaisons almost identically and then just like changed the setting. And it doesn't work as well because in 18th century France, the character of Annette is much more believable as this like Christian sort of saintly church woman, and the sexual naivete of the Cecile character is also more believable because she's, you know, she's sheltered and she's in this sort of pre-liberated world.
Yeah, they tried to get around all of that by having her write an article about being a virgin. Like anyone would, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
What a ridiculous thing to do. But you know, if her father was gunning for that headmaster job, he was like, I know what will push me over the top is if my daughter becomes some kind of like sweetheart of America, like virgin girl. So gross and cynical.
To be fair though, during that time, like if there was some article like that written from the perspective of a teenage girl about remaining quote unquote pure and waiting for love to lose her virginity,
it would have been in 17 magazine. 100%.
Oh yeah, and my mom would have been like, this is excellent, here, read this, like this is what you should strive to be, like, because that during that time period that was huge. Like, and I remember
the Life magazine, Secret Lives of Teens, real teenagers around the country tell us their private thoughts on sex, drugs, and parents. Their answers may surprise.
That I think I was in 5th or 6th grade, so in like 1999, 2000, my mom would let me, you know, subscribe to a few of these magazines, like 17 magazine, YM was another one, like, and there were letters to the editor where, you know, teenage girls, whoever could write in, and someone had written in using the term hand job. And like 11 or 12-year-old me went to my mom with this magazine. I was like, hey mom, what's this? Like, what's a hand job? I don't understand. And she was just like, what are you reading? I was like, you gave it to me. Like, what do you want? And I just think about like that time period. And she absolutely would have been like, no, read this one about the girl who's going to be a virgin until she's married. And it was still good because like my mom was a nurse. Like my parents were very, very open. If we had a question, you ask the question, you get an age appropriate answer. It was never like, well, that's not something we talk about, or you don't need to know that. So that aspect of growing up, I appreciate that about them, but it was still this emphasis on, you know, waiting until you're married, and sex was kind of like this taboo thing that is natural and great, but it's reserved until you're married. Like, it was just watching this movie, it sent me back to that time period. I was like, yeah, what a fun time.
Oh my god.
So the other thing, there's two other things actually, but Ryan Phillippe and Sarah Michelle Gellar had 9 pretty substantial scenes in this movie, which in a movie is a lot. And I Ryan Phillippe's not a super great actor. Let's just leave it there. But I love them together in this. If we want to talk about camp, I mean, they have some. It starts with the bet scene where, and again, he just like walks up behind her and he like walks down like her neck and then just grabs her boob. I remember I was sitting there with my fiance and he does that and I just turned around and looked at her and I was like, okay, here we go. But the second scene it's just a phone call. She calls him and says,
God.
Did you fuck her yet? And he goes, blow me. And she goes, loser. And that was it. That was the whole scene. I was like, okay. Scene 3 is when Kathryn was sitting there with the hidden camera, which couldn't have been too hidden when Cecile does the weird split.
Yeah. Whatever the fuck that was.
That scene And I was just like, what is happening?
And,
Like,
but she's watching it like we are. She's watching it like, what the heck is happening here? And then
even
we get
Ronald
to see
in that scene is like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and
he's like-
but do you remember how how Cecile ended that part of it? When she goes, peace out.
Yeah, peace out. And Catherine's like cringing hard.
Oh god.
But that's the scene where they end up like Ryan Filippi's like laying down and she's laying
she's
kind
sitting
of on
on
top
him?
of him, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
it ends
She
with
says,
that
"Down,
really
boy," which I didn't get the first time.
But
Yep.
that was before the she like licks his face, and one of the most like she just licks him, and I was like,
Ew.
Scene four has this quote: "Email is for geeks and pedophiles. Be romantic."
I love that. That did not age well at all.
This is where Sebastian starts worrying about. He starts saying like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. And it ends with her saying, "Eat me, Sebastian." Scene 5 is when he's watching Annette through the binoculars, and I forget what we end up with. This quote. This quote. He's falling in love with her clearly, and she's starting to get jealous. But whatever happens, the quote that ends it is, "The only thing you'll be riding." Oh, she's like, "I'll be riding it. Is it okay if I take my car out for a ride?" And he looks at her and goes, "The only thing you'll be riding is me." The 6th scene is when he is right after he tells Annette that he can't have sex with her, that it's wrong. And then she just gets right. He's got the journal like laid out, and she like straddles over top of him, and then triggers him completely by telling him, I think, that she left. The 7th scene is right after they have sex. This is where she like triggers him. Oh, he comes walking in with flowers, and this is after she like was lording over them as they like walked out. And then the 8th scene is when she calls him pussy whipped and kind of like sends him off. And then the post breakup scene where he comes to have sex with her. My favorite scene, though, is I called this a scene, is kind of Annette as the proxy. This is a real movie where they could have made this a real special movie, as if Kathryn and Annette would have had a lot more interaction. That's the only time they interact in the whole entire movie, is that last scene in the bathroom, where they're both pretending not to know who each other are. And I think that's the fun of that scene, is that we all know that they know who they are, but they pretend that they don't. And
it's
and
such
the
a
fun
strange choice on both their parts to be
Yeah.
like, I mean, because they're both even at the aunt's house at the same time. Otherwise, how would Kathryn have spied on Annette with the binoculars? But like, they didn't meet in that house, and she's like, "Oh, I was sorry to hear about your brother," and yeah, I sort of knew him. Like, what? It's such a weird thing to pretend they don't know who each other are. It's really
But I
strange.
could see why. I mean, because as far as Annette would know,
without the journal.
Yeah, without the journal, like she is very in the dark. And same with Kathryn. Like they don't know that Sebastian has essentially bared everything to the other person. I mean, Annette knows.
Right, but at this point, Kathryn doesn't know that Annette
Mm-mm.
knows her role in everything.
And
Annette doesn't want to tell her. That makes sense,
Well,
because she's got this thing planned.
But it's just, I think for Kathryn, it comes naturally for her to pretend and keep
Hold
this
back.
persona up. And of course, she's about to go give a eulogy essentially for Sebastian. And I love it knowing what happens after, the way that Annette just kind of goes along with it. Like, oh yeah, you don't know me. Like, so sorry to hear about your brother. And I don't know, like it just feels like very appropriate in terms of teenage girls to me.
Yeah.
The feeling out, the
cattiness.
Yeah.
Where Annette comes in and plays it off like they don't know each other, and then Kathryn maybe doesn't know, like maybe had she have walked in, it would have been a different scene altogether. But
She's
yeah,
like, what's your angle?
And then the last thing I want to talk about is the music.
It's a
I
great
the soundtrack is absolutely positively amazing. I'm not crazy with how they used it in the movie, but it is there's so many good songs in this. I'm not going to talk about them all. I'm going to talk about 4 or 5, but the Fatboy Slim, who I absolutely love, has a song in here called "Praise You." All I can tell you about this song. So this is playing when Kathryn and Cecile are kissing, but this video, if you ever get a chance,
Oh, I know the video. Yeah.
Spike Jonze directed the video, and he literally just took a bunch of dancers to a movie theater, and they, in the middle of the movie theater, just start dancing. And it's an amazing, amazing song, and it's an amazing video. I don't know if they went and saw this movie. I don't think they did. I think this came out a little bit before the movie. Every You, Every Me, the opening credits song is phenomenal. It's absolutely fabulous. It also has a really good video. And then, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Praise You, that music video in particular. I remember watching it on TRL. That's what sticks in. Like, for those that don't know, that would be Total Request Live on MTV, where they would kind of count down the top 10 music videos.
Who was the host?
And
Who was the host in '99?
Carson, was it
Carson
Daly?
Daly. I think he was still hosting. Yeah.
Oh God, I think that was like peak. My middle school, like early high school, would have been Carson Daly. But it's just, God, the flashback. But Praise You, I remember in particular because I had, the Backstreet Boys were huge then, and NSYNC, and Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera kind of dominated. And every now and then you'd get like Foo Fighters in there or Fatboy Slim. And so I remember this video kind of breaking up the boy band.
Yeah, it was very much.
Videos.
Yeah. Blur is they're not one of my favorite bands, but my one of my favorite eras, Britpop, from like 94 to like 97, and Blur was sort of the anti-Oasis, and they have a song called Coffee and TV that's actually really, really good. I highly recommend it. The reason why I like this song is because the guitar player sings it, and it's not a normal thing for Blur. That's really good. It also showed up in a Sopranos video later. One of the greatest Sopranos episodes of all time, the one where they were in the Pine Barrens, where they're chasing. I'm not going to spoil like Sopranos, but highly recommend Sopranos as well. And then probably the last two I want to talk about is "Colorblind" by Counting Crows. That song is when Sebastian and Annette are together. A fantastic scene, filmed really well, I thought. In the song, it's not the song they wanted though. They wanted a song from they wanted a song from Smashing Pumpkins, and Billy Corgan turned them down for the scene, which is unfortunate. But I love Counting Crows, and "Colorblind" is a fantastic song. If you ever see them live, it really changes the mood quickly.
Does
it
start at the escalator and then go to the sex scene? Yeah.
Yes. It's right when you start to see him, you start to hear the song, and then it plays louder and louder. But I think the song, Amy Mann has a song in this that's really good. That's not the song I'm going to talk about, but of course the song that everybody talks about from this is of course the song from The Verve, not the Verve Pipe. They had a song in '96 called "The Freshman," but the Verve's.
I love that song too.
It's one of my favorite songs, and it drives my wife crazy because whenever Bittersweet Symphony comes on, I tell her it's the Verve Pipe, and she says no. But the funny thing about this song is they wanted this song from jump, and they figured it'd be cheap. The problem with this song is that it's remixed from a Rolling Stones song. And what happened is if you really want to dive down, the funny part about this song is that Alan Klein, famous from the Beatles, who was a kind of a dick with the Beatles, also a dick with the Rolling Stones, what they did is in '65, they put out this orchestral version of it that you hear in, and of course, this fantastic song, Bittersweet Symphony, which my son and my daughter, top 10 for them, which is kind of funny because they're, 21 and 19. But anyways, they figured this would be a nice cheap song, and then unfortunately they found out that it was Alan Klein was like, no, we hold the rights to it. So they ended up, but it was too far along in the process for them to find another song. So they went ahead and paid the grandiose amount. Interesting fact, Alan Klein died, and then the Rolling Stones gave him back all the royalties for the song. So like $6 million that the Stones gave back to them after Alan Klein died. But this is, I mean, if you don't know Bittersweet Symphony, it's a fantastic song, very complex song. Many people said it was the number one song in 1997. It's still in the top 500 of most lists for best songs of all time, which is saying a lot. I know some people are like top 500. There's a lot of songs, y'all.
Yeah.
And the video is absolutely amazing. The song came out a long time before the movie, though, so this wasn't made just specifically for the movie. So
the
yeah,
movie is absolutely why I had an obsession with this song growing up. It was on many a mixed CD.
Yeah. After this movie, it was everywhere for a while.
Oh, yeah.
This song.
Well, as soon as I turned 16 and could drive, this song was on my quote unquote driving mix CD because I could like turn it up and roll down all the windows and think about like it was a vibe.
Pretend you were Reese Witherspoon in that gorgeous Jaguar convertible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But like it's just a powerful song, and I'm glad they stuck it out and paid the royalties in this movie because I think it's the perfect song to end with, and the way it just kind of builds and swells.
It starts when the girl walks into the church with the book, and you don't really know what's going on, and you can just start to hear it playing in the background, and then I remember watching it this time going, oh, they played that because, okay. So it is an absolute phenomenal song. It's one of those cross-generational songs. So thank you, Stones, for creating the song to begin with. And thank you to the Verve for remixing it. And honestly, it couldn't have been a more perfect song to end the film with.
I'm not going to lie. I listened to it on the way to my office to podcast today. Nice. Like, this seems appropriate.
I actually drive a convertible, and I can't believe I don't think I've ever listened to it with the
now
top
you have
down.
to have that moment.
Yeah,
maybe not now in December in the Boston area, but
get yourself a leather journal, set it on the passenger seat.
Oh yeah,
some dark sunglasses,
Yeah.
Oh,
we'll have a fluke warm day, and I'll be able to do it.
I like it. You should make a reel of you listening to Bittersweet Symphony in your convertible.
I really should, because then we could put it up on our Instagram page, and it would be funny.
I will say, you mentioned the journal, Sebastian's infamous journal. In Cruel Intentions 2, you see how he gets the journal. You get the little backstory there. But I love the illustrations that they show, like how little crucifix, how he shows how that's where, Kathryn keeps her cocaine, which is brilliant. But
I tried to emulate this in a journal so many times, like mixing drawings and things together with my words. And it's always like 2 pages, and then I am done with that. Like I can't sustain it
enough.
But it's beautiful.
The one thing, my other kind of, final point that I really wanted to talk about was the fashion in this movie, because it is just peak 90s, like with the lingerie being worn as outerwear, like the corsets and like the power blazers, and
very Madonna 90s.
Yeah, very Madonna, yeah.
And the choices that they make for these characters, a couple moments that really stick out to me. Obviously, the corset top that Sarah Michelle Gellar is wearing with the blazer on top of it, that is just iconic. And then they have her in that park scene, basically dressed like a widow in this.
Oh, I thought it was meant to be sort of Audrey Hepburn Breakfast at Tiffany's.
I can see it with the sunglasses and the wide brim hat. And then you have Cecile, who is in these pastels, and she's got the sweater tied around her neck, like very innocent.
Oh, and in that first scene, she has like a koala on her t-shirt, and she's like got her legs open, showing her underpants, like she's 4.
Yeah, like it's just so intentional the choices
Meanwhile, she was
they
27 while filming
Right.
that
She was the
scene.
oldest. She was the oldest one. Yeah.
It's just,
But
I
that,
love
I mean,
it.
that like Selma Blair, what just super underrated as an actress. Like, talk about a force. Like, she comes in there, the oldest person, and she acts like she's 4 years old, and it is 100% can't be believable.
Very convincing.
Hilarious. Really
like her,
funny.
like kind of, she gets some of the like gingham, like the preppier patterns and the floral prints that come out juxtaposed with Sebastian and Kathryn, who are basically in business casual the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's just, gosh, I love the fashion in this movie.
And Annette is always in sort of like light, soft
Okay.
colors, but not as juvenile as Cecile. It's a little bit more
It's like
sophisticated.
Upper East Side Hamptons, like that
A lot
kind
of like
linen
sweater
vibe,
set kind of
white.
vibe. Yeah.
Mhm.
You
Did
kind of
they-
expect pearls, but
Yes.
there weren't any. Yeah.
It seems, just kind of thinking back, it seems like there was like some dark and light play there with the
Yeah.
darker characters and the lighter characters. But
Definitely.
and there was you say pastel. There's kind of, it felt like the screening of the whole movie, there was a very pastel-y kind of look to it as well. That kind of
had
gave
a
it kind of
softness.
which I actually liked.
The decor in especially Kathryn's boudoir, and I say boudoir
Yeah.
on purpose because it looks like high-end brothel, right? It's like what a teenage girl would think was adult and sophisticated and sexy, but it really just looks kind of
very overdone,
trashy and tacky to me. Or like a hotel, right? Impersonal too. Like it just had no real flavor. Actually, all of the bedrooms that the kids live in are like weirdly look like hotel rooms. They don't have any personality at all.
I think the first time I saw it, I thought they were in a hotel. I really did.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the mention about, I love the fact that Cecile hides her love letters from Ronald in her dollhouse in her bedroom.
Because she is a child. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like they're hitting you over the top with that imagery. But I think it works. Like, I think that lends itself to the campiness of, you know, the movie. Like the fact that Kathryn is in a corset in her bedroom while she's grinding on her stepbrother. Like that just, it's so apparent. And, you know, her hair being dark brown compared with Annette and the blonde hair and the kind of white virginal colors that they keep Annette in compared with Kathryn being all, you know, kind of decked out in these dark or really like velvety prints or sheer. She wears that sheer top at one point where you can kind of see her bra underneath. And it's just, the choices are spot on. And I will say, you know, you brought it up earlier, Joshua Jackson's character, like this horrible parody of a gay man or gay teen in the late 90s who also happens to be a drug dealer, because why not? But his bleached hair,
that was so 90s.
like it's so 90s.
It was so Justin Timberlake, right? Yeah.
I mean, look, was there a day where Jim may have sun-inned his hair so that it was bleach blonde?
Sun-in.
Oh yes, there was that day. Did I appreciate the way Joshua Jackson looked at this movie? Oh, I sure did. Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, I wish he was in it more too. Like I love Joshua Jackson. He's really good in almost everything that he's in, and it's almost like okay, we need another like name boy, so let's put him in this role for like 5 seconds. But the movie was only an hour.
He was probably praised at the time for like being like brave enough to play a gay role, and I'm sure that there were a million gay actors being like, I would like to play a gay role.
What the hell, man? I wish he was in more. I love him so much.
Did you watch Fringe? He was amazing in Fringe.
Yes, that is
Fringe.
why I started watching Fringe. I stayed for, you know, it was interesting. But Joshua Jackson, there's just something about him. Like he's sarcastic and witty.
Have
like
you
that
seen
Pacey-Con?
Pacey-Con?
What? What is
He
that?
did this thing several years ago at Comic-Con where he set himself up across the street from the main venue with a boombox just playing the Dawson's Creek theme, and he called it Pacey-Con and like asked fans to meet him
My
there
gosh.
as
I
just
bet
like a big joke. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
A lot of people showed up, and apparently
need
they
to
had a
Google
good time. I think he had like sodas and snacks and stuff, and it was like a festive,
Ugh. Like,
atmosphere. It's so
sixth
funny.
grade me had a giant crush on Pacey Witter.
Yeah.
So I might have to look into that. That sounds funny.
Yeah, there's definitely video footage of it. I saw it on like YouTube or something.
That's fantastic. Wasn't he in he was in the remake of Fatal Attraction, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Do you know what I'm talking about? It was
there's a TV version of it.
Yeah, a
recently.
TV version of. I think he's
with
in
Rachel
that.
Weisz, maybe. No,
That sounds right.
That's a different remake.
Oh,
That's
They
Dead
made-
Ringers.
Affair, I love with. That's the most recent Joshua Jackson thing that I've seen is The Affair, which convinced me he can still.
If they made a TV version of Fatal Attraction, like I just can't.
They did.
Oh.
It's out there. It's him and Lizzie Kaplan.
Oh,
That's
Lizzie
right. I was
Kaplan,
like,
right.
Mean Girls. I was like, Mean Girls.
I knew it was like a woman with like dark, sort of straight hair. Like I was picturing, and I was like, Rachel Weisz. That's not quite right. Yeah.
And Amanda Peet, who is another kind of
90s
throwback
icon.
90s.
She's in a lot of those movies that we were talking about earlier that you might like correlate into that. Plus, she has a great last name.
Oh man.
Oh, Jim.
Good time.
Oh, I've had a big crush on her when in the 90s. I used to tell my wife all the time, if I married her, she could just keep her last name.
Pete.
Yeah, there you go. That would be nice.
And there aren't a lot of last name Pete people out there, and she spells it different, but it's all the same letter, so it's all good.
That's true.
That's good. All right. Hey, let's take a little break, you guys, and we'll be right back. Hey everyone, we're back, and we all got new waters and things, so we can have a good time talking about some behind-the-scenes trivia. Jim, why don't you start us off?
All right, so the original title was Cruel Inventions. Definitely lame. They changed it because I think when they first put the title out, they said it sounded too much like a science fiction movie, if I recall.
Funny. I'm glad they changed it.
It's so much better the way it is.
Cruel Inventions? Like, how does that even make sense?
Yeah, it's horrible.
Maybe just call it Cruel, but Cruel Inventions?
Oh, man. And another fun fact, Reese Witherspoon had initially turned the role of Annette down until they agreed to rewrite the character to have more of a backbone and more depth. And we mentioned this, and this is, very on brand for Reese, given how her producing body of work is. And
yeah,
I'm
like
glad she
Big Little
kind of
Lies and
fought
things
back.
like that are so progressive. I love her.
Great. She's one of the few celebrities that I feel like I've been able to forgive saying stupid things.
Yeah.
Like when she got arrested.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Do you know who I am? I was like, oh, yes, we do.
Yeah. It's the worst thing. No one should ever say that. You never sound good when you say that.
It's just not a good plan.
Although it was best used in a scene in Veronica Mars where Logan says, "Do you know who I am?" You know what scene I'm talking about, Kara?
That show. Yes.
So funny. I don't want to give it away because it's a great moment, but it's the best.
Iconic.
Writer and director Roger Kumble was inspired by the movie Welcome to the Dollhouse that came out in 1995. It's a Todd Solondz movie. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, it's another amazing movie about like how hard it is to be a teenager, especially a teenage girl. It's dark. It's fucked up. It's a tiny independent film that had like no budget, but it's so good. He said that he felt he had never seen anything like it that was so dark, fucked up high school, and it quickly led him to the thought of doing a new adaptation of Les Liaisons Dangereuses, but set in high school. I have no idea what the correct way is to say that. If anyone wants to record it and send it in so that I can be, properly embarrassed, please just go right ahead and do that.
It's hard enough reminding myself that it's Philippi and not Felipe. So actually trying to pronounce that is not in the cards.
All right, Christine Baranski, who's fantastic, just a
I love
fantastic
it.
actress. She took the role because her daughters were huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans, and she jumped at the opportunity to be in this movie, to work with Sarah Michelle Gellar, and they have some really great little scenes together that are absolutely fantastic. It just goes to show you the weight. Of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show. And I think over time that people forget how big of a phenomenon it was. But yes, it was a phenomenon where like actors wanted to be on the show, like so many prestige shows are now. It was very much that back in the day.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh, I love this little bit of trivia. The production designer, John Gary Steele, had it so that all of the locations they were permitted to paint were painted in dark colors. He said, I see the movie as very much a tragedy. He said, since we were using a young cast, I didn't want it to feel like a young, bright teen film because it's not. It's very tragic. Everyone basically loses.
Yeah.
Yep. I see that like juxtaposed next to She's All That.
Right, which is pop colors and brightness. Yeah. Or like Clueless, other films like that, like so
they're almost
bright.
like comic booky, yeah.
Yeah. The kissing scene between Sarah Michelle Gellar and Selma Blair ranked the film at number 32 on Entertainment Weekly's The 50 Sexiest Movies Ever. That was in 2008.
Huh.
Wonder where that would rank now.
I know.
And the kiss scene between Selma Blair and Sarah Michelle Gellar is still censored in some countries. So we in the U.S. think two women kissing is tame and no big deal, but it's still considered scandalous to many around the world, which is interesting because I think we here in the United States are generally more conservative than others, but there are definitely certain countries.
We sexualize the two women kissing.
Yes,
right. It's acceptable because it turns men on, and some women.
They're two hot women.
Yeah, two like young hot women kissing is fine.
Like nobody talks about the sex scene between Joshua Jackson, even though it's implied. It's not shown graphically. That would have been an entirely different story, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, that would have been pretty amazing. I did want to mention that Selma Blair and Sarah Michelle Gellar are famously very close friends.
Yes.
Selma Blair has been very public about her MS diagnosis and how hard it has been to live with that disease. I'll put some links in the show notes if you want to learn more about MS or maybe donate to a cause. It's a really horrible disease that we still don't know what causes it. Treatments are sort of limited to managing symptoms. There's no cure. Their friendship is really beautiful. The support that Sarah Michelle Gellar has given to Selma publicly as she fights MS has been really beautiful to watch from the outside. Sarah is also good friends with Shannon Doherty, who's been fighting cancer, and it's been a similar sort of beautiful, supportive friendship, at least publicly. And I love seeing women who are friends and not competitive with each other in that way.
Yeah. Well, especially that era of actress. Like Shannon Doherty is another one that we can have a whole podcast on, talking about how, she's been treated and portrayed over the years. But I think one thing that stands out with these women in particular, and Sarah Michelle Gellar, is that they truly seem like genuine people who kind of take care of each other. And part of that, I think, is the spotlight and the time that they kind of came of age and gained celebrity.
I think Sarah Michelle Gellar has handled it she's handled her stardom in a very elegant way, I think, over the years. And it's fun kind of watching, like she's definitely has had some ups and downs, but I think she's been in an era where people have been making mistakes like left and right. Like she is really sort of traversed being a star. Her and Freddie Prinze and their family, they've traversed being stars in a way that I think a lot of people could maybe follow that pattern a little more.
True.
I agree. So this brings us to the moment in the episode where I ask the question, does it still slay? Which is really just, how does it hold up after all these years? I'm going to jump in and say sort of 50-50. Parts of it still slay. Some of the performances are great. The music's undeniably fantastic. The production qualities and sort of look of the film are amazing, and I have a lot of nostalgia attached to it, but lots of it does not age well.
Oh yeah. There's definitely some problematic aspects of it, but the nostalgia aspect's kind of hard to get away from. Like I still enjoy watching it, but I feel like it had so much potential to be so much more that it's hard not to think about that. Ugh.
I'm just gonna say, because no one ever says this, because we love Buffy, I'm gonna say it does not still slay, even though I'd still watch it. Like if you told me 5 years from now we're gonna podcast on it again, I'd probably still watch it. It just it's that potential, Kara, that you're just talking about. I as I was watching it this time, and the 52-year-old in me thought, man, I just want that Kathryn version of the movie, like her perspective. So maybe they'll remake it someday and not do Cruel Intentions 2 or Cruel Intentions 3. Don't.
Oh yeah, that's a
Kathryn's cousin joins the fray. That's
It's
all
like
I'm going to say.
Grease too.
We did, there was a TV show that Sarah Michelle Gellar was really excited about in 2019,
and it didn't go forward. Yeah.
So I think that there were people like Sarah Michelle Gellar who were pushing for it to still be pretty steamy and pretty racy, but NBC wanted to put it on regular television, and it just never meshed. So she started off really high on it, and I remember the last interview I saw her doing right before the pandemic, she said it's something that would be great for HBO or for a streamer, but not for NBC.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate, because having her character 20 years later. Oh.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
I was having this fantasy that we could bring back the Kathryn character and Sarah Michelle Gellar, but she could be a character on the White Lotus season 3. She'd fit right into that world. It would be so good.
How amazing would that be?
Oh, it'd be amazing.
I will say, this show taught me a couple of phrases that I was not aware of before I saw it. One of those is Tara Reid's character saying calling her mom's comments psychobabble bullshit.
Yeah, nice.
I had never heard that before. I'm sure it was a common phrase, but I used that more than I should have growing up in high school and college, when I thought I was sounding intelligent. It's like, thanks, Tara Reid.
There is a new upcoming TV adaptation at Amazon Prime. The cast has been released for the most part. It doesn't have Sarah Michelle Gellar attached, or Ryan Phillippe, or Reese Witherspoon, or any of those people. The young characters are a bunch of actors I don't know.
I can't believe all the research I've done. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
Yeah, this news dropped 6 days ago, and I was like, oh my God, the timing, because we're just about to talk about this. I don't see who the rest of the cast is of any names. Oh, Sean Patrick Thomas is going to be in it, but not as the same character.
He was supposed to be in Cruel Intentions 2, but they cut him from it as a different character, as a completely different character.
That would have been
weird.
Interesting.
So we'll see if this actually happens. It's in the early stages, but Prime Video, they certainly have the power to make it happen. As a streamer, they could be as racy as they want to be, which is, that's fun.
The second character listed on IMDb is Vice President Grover, so take that for what it's worth.
Let's go over to the bronze and see what our listeners have to say.
Bronze things of bronze.
I first wanted to say that I've been thinking about this for a while, and I'm going to stop. I think we should stop using people's last names when we say what their feedback is. I feel like there might be some people who would want to have feedback but don't necessarily want their name on there. So we'll use first names. But if you want to add a modifier to your name, like I would be Penny from Massachusetts, or something fun like a nickname, like, I don't know, Swamp Demon, Whatever it is, but try to be consistent so we can identify that the feedback all comes from the same person.
Swamp Demon. Okay, I've had that thought before because my last name, there's nobody else that has my name. Like, it is a very unique name. So I've thought about that a couple times when my name gets read out loud with feedback. It's like, I can appreciate, keeping it to first names only.
Well, plus it will help us not mess up.
Yeah, that's true.
Names.
First names are usually easier to pronounce than last names. If you want to have a nickname or whatever, throw it in the comment and we'll use it. So our first feedback comes from Becky, who's quickly turning into our #1 fan. And she says, I am here for this. She also sent us a picture of herself, very cute, in her Sunny Day high sweatshirt that we all loved, and we will post it on Instagram when this episode goes up. Yes. So Becky, you guys can all see Becky's cool sweatshirt.
Next, we hear from Wendy Ann. She said this was a great movie, but the soundtrack is epic. Still one of my favorite all-time soundtracks.
Very true.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the next is from Mark, spelled M-A-R-C, just like Mark Blucas. So Mark Blucas, I hope you're doing well. One of the best movies of the late 90s. Loved a teen movie back then. I know we said we weren't doing last names. It's not really Mark Blucas. I apologize.
Actually, Kara, can you take the next one? Because I want to read Karen's.
Okay, next is Becca. She said, loved all 4 of these actors in this film. I'll be waiting to listen to the pod.
So our final piece of feedback comes from Karen, who was originally going to guest on the podcast with us. And when she had to bow out, I asked her to send in her thoughts, and she sure came through. So here we go.
This is fabulous. Yeah.
I love it.
I watched this movie for the first time last week. Boy, did it have all the hallmarks of a classic 90s flick, only doused in sex and tantalizing twisted humor. I can't imagine how fun it might have been to watch this as a teenager. How thrilling it would have been to steal glances at the educational, and she's got that in quotes, educational, naughtier parts. The story is complex and compelling, and in many ways a perfect modern adaptation of a tale as old as time, or at least as old as 1782, when Les Liaisons Dangereuses, the third time I have to say it, was published and then banned for spreading immorality. I didn't know it had been banned. That's amazing. I'm sure Cruel Intentions received the same calls of corruption in 1999. Which leads me to my next point. I don't know what's my ultimate takeaway with this movie. There is a tension because I'm all about laissez-faire, especially when it comes to art. Art is the perfect tool to challenge and provoke the status quo. Yet, watching this in 2023, I'm left feeling icky about the clear homophobic and patriarchal lens here. Ryan Phillippe is so good looking and suave. I both hate and sympathize with him. But the movie is ultimately much kinder to Sebastian, while either mocking one virgin, Selma Blair, uplifting the other as pure, Reese Witherspoon, and demonizing Sarah Michelle Gellar's penchant for sex. All of the leading women revolve around Sebastian. Even the therapist blames her own daughter at the start of the movie with, "How can you be so stupid?" because Sebastian seduced her. Sure, Kathryn vocalizes the male gaze in one brief scene, asking why she's punished for her sexual appetite. Yet it's never followed up on, and she gets her comeuppance at the end of the film while Sebastian is eulogized. To be fair, Annette is introduced with a lot of agency. She's strong and independent. Then again, it's right in the patriarchal playbook for a male character to be made whole by the love of a good, pure woman like Annette. I am a glut for themes about ennui, where love is both the impasse and the answer. But yeah, I am so conflicted about this movie. Thanks for introducing me to it and covering it. XXO.
It is very conflicting.
Yeah. It's hard to know how to feel about it. And I had to keep reminding myself it's camp. It's meant to be over the top. Because it was kind of hard to watch it at first until I got used to the tone, and then I was in
Otherwise, that anger comes out because Sebastian, like she said, like they all revolve around him. He does some truly despicable things, and he's a martyr in the end, basically, and is lifted up to a certain extent. But I think it's perfect commentary for when it came out.
Yeah. Karen, this is a fantastic piece of feedback, and I'm so grateful that you came through with it. And thank you so much. And you can come on a future episode and talk about another movie. We'll figure out a time. So that's the end of our podcast.
Thank you for listening.
If you'd like to join the conversation, you can still find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Podcastica or Instagram at @StillSlayingCast. Check out Podcastica.com for all our contact information and links to all the other Podcastica shows.
Oh, I will say you can also now email us feedback directly at stillslayingfeedback@gmail.com.
Oh, that's right. Thank you, Kara. I forgot about
Yes.
While you're on Podcastica.com, check out some of our other shows. I'm sure if you are a lover of Buffy, that you would find something to love in Yellow Jackets, another story of 90s teens going through some shit. And The Walking Dead rewatch is well underway on The Cast of Us, and that has been a lot of fun. Oh, and LokiCast just reviewed the new movie, The Marvels, and that podcast was really interesting to listen to.
Yes.
How about you guys?
I'm still stuck on all the Squid Games coverage, both the challenge and the rewatch. I am all in on that right now.
I just think there's such a backlog of amazing stuff. So I didn't watch Ahsoka right when it came out. I waited a good bit and just kind of binged it, and then would listen to each Ahsoka episode. I got to tell you, James, Jonathan, and Kristen worked on Ahsoka, and the best part about these Podcastica podcasts or the family atmosphere, how you guys work together a lot and become like family. And I think listening to Jonathan and James, who have known each other for a long time, and then Kristen get thrown into the mix, just listening to their casual conversations about what they've watched, what they've not watched. They can be condescending with each other in a way that we forget about in an age where everybody's so stigmatized about things that we say, and it's just wonderful to listen to. So I highly recommend Ahsoka. I am currently listening to The Walking Dead, and what I'm doing is I am watching episode 1, and then I went back and listened to the initial podcast with the original Jason and Karen, and then listening to the follow-up with Jason and Lucy, which has been just an amazing depth of
I bet that's fun.
Awesome. So I again, kind of looking at the show and with perspective and the differences between listening to it in 2010, watching it in 2010, and now watching it again in 2023. Again, it puts that lens on it, which is very, very interesting. And much like Jason, having a different kind of viewpoint on specifically Daryl, how that's changed in 13 years. But yeah, but the one thing I would just recommend as someone who's been around since 2010, but only vocal for the past year or so, is there's such an amazing backlog. And if you really want depth of any of the shows that you watch, look and see if they've done it. It just adds a whole new layer of conversation. And then join the Facebook page. And then if you even want to take it a step further, join Patreon, because the Zedhead group is fantastic. It's a great community for those of you that need community. I think this day and age, we all need community.
It is, there's something that I've been thinking about lately in terms of specifically the Zedhead group. One, that no matter what you want to talk about or whatever show you're into, you'll find people, even if they're not into it, they're not gonna shit all over you for liking something that they don't like. Yeah, it's just everybody is into movies and TV shows and talking about shows that they love or shows that they find compelling. And I also think in terms of, another type of safe space, everyone is incredibly respectful. And I can't remember who I said this to, if it was Jason or Jade or something the other day, but everyone in that group, and particularly the men, are all men that I get the vibe I can leave my drink with you. Everyone is very thoughtful, respectful, open-minded. It's a very nice space to have on the internet. So if that's rare, if that sounds like your vibe, come try it out for a little while, because I think it's just nice to have that kind of receptacle of like-minded people these days.
And if you like what we do, we love it when people subscribe to our podcast, hit like, whatever it is you do, share it with people, follow us, drop us a 5-star rating or leave a review. We love reviews. Or, send an email if you have a question or something like that. Like, drop us a line at, what was the email address again, Kara?
It's stillslangfeedback@gmail.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes. Show notes, not motes. Show notes.
And next time, we'll be doing our season 2 wrap-up for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, talking about all of our superlatives, favorite moments, least favorite moments, so make sure to tune in to that.
Gosh, which means season 3 is coming.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Although Spike's not in that a lot, which is the one thing I don't like about it. But I digress. Until next time, I'm Jim.
I'm Kara.
And I'm Penny.
Keep slaying.